Before we jump into today's episode, I want to share something that I'm genuinely excited about, especially after this conversation. If you've ever struggled with energy during the day or winding down at night, a big part of that may actually come down to your light environment. Kyle and the team at BrainLit have developed something called biocentric lighting, designed to mimic natural sunlight indoors and support your body's natural rhythms. And they've made this accessible through their Alvin lamp. If you want to experience this for yourself, Kyle has offered our audience an exclusive 33% discount. You can head to shop.brainlit.com and use the code Soaring Solutions 33 off, or just click the link in the show notes to make it easy. If you're looking for a simple, high impact way to improve your sleep, energy, and overall environment, this is definitely something worth checking out. All right, let's get into the episode. What if one of the biggest disruptors in health and performance isn't a new drug, it's not a new protocol, and it's not even AI, but something that we've been overlooking the entire time? What if it's light? Today's guest is Kyle Harris. He's the CEO of BrainLit, a company redefining how light impacts our health. While most of us are thinking of light as purely visual, Kyle is leading the charge in biocentric lighting, which brings the natural benefits of sunlight indoors to improve energy, focus, sleep, and recovery. But here's where it gets really interesting. As AI continues to optimize everything from diagnostics to operations in healthcare, innovations like this remind us that the future of wellness isn't just about smarter technology, it's about creating environments that work for and with our biology. In a world dominated by screens, LEDs, and constant digital exposure, this conversation explores something as simple and as overlooked as light and how it could be one of the most powerful levers as we continue to truly optimize human wellness and health. Welcome to the podcast, Kyle. We're so happy to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell everyone who's not familiar, tell everyone a little bit about what BrainLit is and what your journey was that led you here.
Sure. So BrainLit is a company that was founded in Lund, Sweden, just outside Copenhagen, just over the bridge. The founder was one of the original creators of Bluetooth. He became kind of interested in the power of light a long time ago, about 14 years ago. Started working with different protocols and just started to look at understanding how indoor lighting was not conducive to better health, and just started building a product around it. That ultimately became what we now call biocentric lighting. Yeah, I got introduced to the company through two of the U.S. investors. They said they were looking for someone to run the North American business. I got involved and ultimately became the global CEO a couple of years later.
Amazing. And so tell everyone exactly what biocentric lighting actually means.
So natural daylight or sunlight has certain color intensity and spectrum to it that your natural biology responds to. Unfortunately, the way we live these days, house to car to subway to office, behind glass, indoors 90% of the time, we're not getting the natural light triggers that our body responds to. So biocentric is a commercial enterprise level approach to taking light controls, recipes, and design and making it actually healthful to the people that are involved in the space. So we look at it as a turnkey opportunity to take any place that a human, no matter what their job might be, and take the light above their head and make it something that is conducive to better health and wellness.
So two things came up for me there. What actually happens to our body when we don't get the right light signals?
So throughout the course of the day, if you're not getting the right light signals, you're not being energized. Your body responds to the blue light energy and sunlight, and as it rises, it drives you to be more energized and focused, creates cortisol, and that allows you to go throughout the course of your day. Think back to caveman, cavewoman, sun woke you up, kept you energized, sunset, you go to sleep. So without the right light triggers, your body has a hard time calibrating its circadian rhythms or internal clock, and then you lose the ability to be energized and focused as you naturally do. When you have too much blue light energy into the evenings, into the nighttime, that suppresses your ability to build melatonin. So then your ability to go to sleep and sleep well is suppressed. So without the right light during the day, the bright cycle, you then impact your ability to go into a dark cycle. And so if you're not getting good light and dark curves, your body's not in its optimal ability for energy and focus and then sleep and recovery. And during sleep is where you pick up a lot of your mental repair, muscular repair, memory consolidation. So the more sleep you get, the next day you're more energized, your immune system's better. So without good light, you're not focused during the day, you're not likely to sleep as well at night. And then in the long term, there's discussion of obesity, cancer, and dementia being driven by bad lighting because of bad sleep.
Yeah, I think sleep is such a topic that so many people I know are struggling with. One of the most common things we try and do just for ourselves at home is not put the cell phone so close to you. Just maybe more so that if you wake up in the middle of the night, you're not as tempted to pick it up and start looking at it and start that scrolling. And so that's one little thing that we can do, but that's just a small little piece. For the most part, many of us are spending much more time indoors under these lights in our offices, whether it's our home office, our work office. So that's kind of where you guys step in. So when people are in an environment where they're utilizing your lights, do they see an actual difference? Do the lights dim at all during the course of the day? Is there a shift in the tone, the color of the light, or is it a constant thing and maybe or in not really perceptible?
No, it does all of those things throughout the course of the day. If you just stare at the light, you probably won't notice it. But if you were to time lapse it over the course of the day, you would notice that the intensity would come up, the color change would come up, the spectrum would change. So you're going to get almost something similar to sunrise sunset effect of being outdoors in an interior space. So you would have to be sitting there over the course of the day to see it.
Hmm.
When you're at the top of the day or late morning, early afternoon, it's going to look very similar to commercial lighting, depending on how well the original design was done, right? So a lot of spaces are overly warm to yellow and kind of buttery feeling because it's comfortable, but that's not actually great for performance and focus. So the issue becomes is what do you want the environment to be doing while you're working in it? That's much different than a restaurant in the evening when you're trying to relax than what you're supposed to be doing throughout the course of the day. So you will notice it, but it goes over the course of the day. It's nothing jagged. It's not. It's very smooth. You want it to be very natural feeling so that it's not a distraction or jarring in any way.
And can you guys customize this for each client as far as, maybe what the hours are, when most of their employees would be in there, or the type of environment that they're working in? Can you really fine tune it for each specific environment like that?
Sure. I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day, and you've got
Right.
to try to fit the right amount of light and dark into that schedule. But there are tactical ways to kind of shift the energizing curves. You can do very tactical engagements like pre-game or post-game. You can do certain things to help with jet lag, and in terms of introducing a high volume of blue light energy into a morning versus the recur would be a more natural daily schedule. There's absolutely things you can do. Biocentric light can be running at 4 a.m. for a donut shop that's dark outside, but you still want your employees to be energized and working, even though the sun hasn't risen yet. So there's things that you can do in terms of how you shift that curve. Probably the most important place that it can be very beneficial is in shift work. How do you deal with nurses running or doctors 2 12-hour shifts or 3 8-hour shifts? How do you try to give them the best light triggers and stimulation throughout the course of their shift, which then allows them to be, have a good circadian alignment throughout the regular part of their regular part of their existence or the out of work hours. And
Hmm.
that's kind of the key is how do you make the environment more adapted to the person and forcing the individual to adapt to the space that they work in.
So you mentioned quite a few sort of work environments, but are there also things that BrainLit has that people can utilize in their own homes?
I mean, we do have a single user product, the big white thing behind me there. That's an Alvin lamp.
Okay.
I've got one here that I stand under, and then that one's just in my room. But that's something that's a single user in long-term healthcare facilities or nursing homes. It can be put over your chair where people sit throughout the course of the day. It will give them a daylight, a nice smooth daylight serving. I have it standing here, so I kind of stand under it all day long as I work. So yeah, that's the closest thing. You want to be able to have a system that is designed to put the right light spectrum into the photoreceptors in the eye to create the response. You want it to modulate throughout the course of the day. Yeah, you have to be careful. You just don't want to go with bright light all day long.
Mhm.
That's then going to defeat the blue light depleted portion of the day where you're trying to build melatonin. If you keep the too bright into the evening, then you're further suppressing yourself. So you have to kind of understand how to put the space to make it the most conducive to what your 24-hour body needs versus
Mhm.
just throwing lights in a room. And that's why it's the biocentric design is the key. It's the lights, it's the recipes, it's the controls, and it's the design that is how it comes together to be truly helpful.
So once you install a system for a workplace environment, if someone wants to make changes to that schedule at all, is that something that they can control themselves, or do you guys control that behind the scenes, behind the curtain?
It depends on how they've engaged it. Sometimes they can just call us and we can make modifications to the schedule. Typically, people aren't really changing their schedules. They more want to put a different recipe in a different room. So they may change an office to a patient room, or they may change the shift schedule. So that's the kind of stuff that we do in conjunction with our partners. The other thing that our solution allows for is very easy to reconfigure floors. So if you want to make a room bigger or smaller, you don't have
Mhm.
to change the lights and hire a third party to come reprogram the system. That can all be done by the owner or the facilities management very, very
Mhm.
easily. So that's kind of the key, is that once you're using it, both the healthy attributes can be deployed very easily and modified. And then also the space can be very quickly redesigned. Silly example is a kitchen could be doing 4 a.m. donuts and then they could change to 9 p.m. dinner. They need
Mhm.
different times of the day to be servicing the right kind of light. That's the change in the schedule, but you're still running the same light fixtures in the kitchen. So those are just different examples of how we are very convenient for the operator to both have a long future-proof existence. And the other thing is our system is a platform so that we can remotely access it in conjunction with the partner. So that is, as light science or the design needs to change, we can update the recipes over time. So you're getting the benefit of being able to leverage the power of LED panels and LED light sources, which can last technically 15 years in some
Mhm.
cases. If you have a solution that can manage and leverage those long life cycle products, then you get a much more sustainable environment and now through a biocentric design, you get healthy and sustainable.
That sounds amazing. What are some of the biggest challenges that you are facing right now in growing BrainLit and educating the market about what it is that you guys do and the benefits to them?
I mean, lighting is typically one of the last things that gets bought in a building. So
Mhm.
if you don't really design it correctly, and then there's a perception that there's a budget issue, then lighting can go cheap, and cheap light can really ruin a beautiful building design. And
Mhm.
so, really, the biggest education is: did you know that light can be healthy? No, I didn't. How much more does it cost? Not really any more than a good light design, if you have a good light design. So really, it's just timing and education. I mean, we've been pounding in the U.S. market for 4.5 years now, and we're really finding that the architects are starting to learn about us. There's a significant increase in standardization bodies that are putting out a lot of information about healthy light and the physiological benefits of good lighting and why it benefits the humans in the box that they work in. And so since we meet and exceed all of those standards, and we come with a solution that is very easy to design, deploy, and utilize, we're kind of the front runners in the space. But really, it's education, and we're still a pretty small company. We just don't have enough feet on the ground.
You mentioned the US market. What other markets around the world are you currently serving at this point?
Well, we're a Swedish company, so we started in the Nordics.
Mhm.
We've got a huge business in the UK. So throughout the EU and UK, we've started doing some stuff in Southeast Asia. We're beginning work in the Middle East. So yeah, we're pretty global. I mean, funny enough, lights in the whole world.
Right.
So we just have to get to those people that are beginning to understand the power and design capabilities of healthy light to
Mhm.
augment and complement pretty light. I talk about our competitor design light for sight. We design light for performance and recovery. And then when you do that correctly, that's where biocentric light fits in.
And what are some of the things that you're most excited about um, for your business in the upcoming years, next year, the next 5 years?
I mean, I'm always excited about the speed of adoption that we're seeing when you get recognized by the larger architectural firms. Oh, we've heard about you. Oh, we have projects for you. That kind of momentum is very encouraging.
Hmm.
We're doing a lot of really large projects across sports. So those are always fun. Those announcements of the big teams that we, keep adding to our rosters are always fun. But I think the place that we're really finding, I don't know if it's philanthropic, but when you look at long-term care facilities and nursing homes, the benefit you can have people that have very limited access to daylight are inside more than 90% of their time. Can you make their lives more enjoyable, help with their energy and focus, but also happiness. So I think where it really gets exciting is being able to extend into healthcare and long-term care.
Okay, so you mentioned a couple different industries, healthcare with potentially hospitals and then nursing home types of situations. And then kind of the opposite end of the spectrum is like high performance sports teams. Do
Mhm.
you see that one industry over the other is really jumping on this faster and seeing the benefits?
So the European market tends to be a little bit faster in healthcare and long-term care than the U.S. There's different structures of in who pays and who owns the properties. In the U.S., sports has been very positive for us because it's just there's a lot of fear of missing out. Everybody wants the greatest performance tool. We tend to be the most efficient price per square foot way to affect a very large, high cost roster of players. But then we
Mhm.
also give performance benefits to coaches and staff. So instead of buying a single item for a single player or a single service or a single supplement, we're now servicing 300 people in a building that's supporting the players on the field or court. So
Mhm.
sports in the U.S. is great for us, but we're seeing a lot of growth in education, long-term care, hospitals, and Europe tends to be the kind of the opposite, where healthcare and hospitals is growing rapidly, and sports just because of the ownership is different.
Well, when you think about what we value in the US versus Europe, it's actually not that surprising of a correlation there, is it really?
Well, I mean, you still have, no matter what the market is, you still have to convey the return on investment. You have to be able to
Mhm.
demonstrate that the science works, the results actually are beneficial to humans. And, with all of the 2,800 plus white papers in the world talking about the power of light for health and wellness, and the way we've designed our solution to support all of the design and performance standards, we think we're clearly a front runner in what we would call biocentric light or circadian effect of healthy light.
So we always do bring it back a little bit to AI. So that's what our company Soaring Solutions does. So do you currently, personally, and for your business, utilize AI in some way?
I personally use AI. I just find it a very helpful tool trying to run a lot of different portions of my business, from marketing to research, strategy, things like that. In terms of the core products, if you look at the amount of data that people collect about their sleep and performance, the proliferation of biosensors, there's so much data that can be brought in to personalize how your environment supports you, not
Hmm.
necessarily just how you exercise or eat. But what if your office was to serve you a recipe of light based on your personal preferences and or personal performance or
Hmm.
needs or schedule or calendar, things like that. So we use a lot of AI in terms of crunching what we would call the personalized data that people collect on themselves to create a much more engaging one-to-one environment versus just a big an office with a light above your head. Why should that light serve you to be better?
Is there some component of your business that you wish you could just hand over to AI right now? Something that you wish you could automate and take off your plate?
That's an interesting question. I think you always want to say that, sales and sales research, I think probably can always be more automated.
Hmm.
We're physical world products. So we're not digital. So we actually have to be in ceilings. We have to be in buildings. So you still need humans doing work, hanging lights, programming, commissioning facilities, things like that. So I don't think we will ever be fully overtaken by AI. I think it's definitely a complement to what we can put into our system, our platform, to make it smarter more quickly on a more individualized basis. But yeah, I wish I could just make customers say yes faster and buy quicker. I mean, if there's a magic AI tool that just gets people to say yes. But I think I think it has helped customers. I think their ability to do research, their ability to confirm the data, their ability to look at the broader market more quickly, seeing decisions are, I think, even moving faster. But I wish maybe that's the one thing I push out there.
Speed that along a little bit more. I think in any industry now with AI, people, whether it's customers or patients, are coming a little more informed, not always properly informed, but they're coming with a little bit more bringing to the table than we have some of that groundwork has already been done and get it moving in the right directions. Maybe it's not an immediate yes, but it might be pushing it along a little bit faster for you, Kyle.
Anything to make it faster.
To make it faster. Do you guys prefer to set up from the ground up when a building is being built, or I would imagine though most of the time you're implementing into an already existing space and changing that out?
I mean, we can do either. I mean, if you start from the beginning, it can be 18, 24, 36 months out before the lights ever put into the ceiling. If you're
Mm-hmm.
doing renovations, they tend to be faster, but not necessarily as big. And you may not get as much of the ability to control the environment because you're just doing smaller spaces. We're commercial grade lighting that just happens to be done correctly for health and wellness. So we can do renovations, we can do design build from scratch. So we're involved in some very huge early arenas and stadiums from the very, very beginning that are just being announced, and we're in the middle of doing renovations right now for stadiums and arenas that are 15, 20 years old, bringing them up to a more enhanced performance standard. So yeah, we can do either. It's not an issue for us.
These are exciting times for you guys. Have you had some of your previous customers or current ones come back and say, wow, what a difference, that they were surprised at what an impact it made? Or is it
Oh
oftentimes?
yeah, I mean it's funny how people buy it. Occasionally they'll buy a small space to start to test it out, and then all of a sudden that conference room is packed because no one will leave it because everybody wants to use it because they feel better after they work in it. So all of a sudden it just kind of spreads across the facility. We've done interesting installations mid-season for sports teams where they'll go away on a road trip and they'll come back and have done the physio room next to the locker room, and that looks brilliant and energized, and they kind of like it looks great, and then the locker room looks dark and dumpy. And they're like, "What
Yeah.
happened? What'd you do? Paint? No, we changed the light. Well, when are we going to fix this?" And it just expands. So, and then because you could put people on biosensors like this, or the bands or watches, when you put people in the environments and their sleep patterns change, their readiness scores, their sleep latency changes fairly quickly. There's both objective and subjective responses we get from people very, very quickly, which was, wow, it looks great. I feel better when I'm in it. I don't have my afternoon lull. I don't feel tired after pizza lunch. And then at the same time, I notice that my scores are getting better fairly quickly. So yeah, both ways we see it.
It's such a simple change, and for people in particular who are really paying attention to their health and trying to do all the right things, and sometimes we have to remember, like, to take this supplement or do this at a certain time, but to have something just as simple as the light, which you don't even have to think about once you turn it on, have such a amazing impact. That's a real game changer for a lot of people, I imagine.
That's where it becomes. I mean, we even us. I mean, even when I first started, I wasn't. I was selling it more as kind of too individualized. And then I had a coach for one of the big D1 U.S. soccer programs, and he brought in all of the assistant coaches and said, how do you guys look at this thing? He said, instead of one of you buying it, if each of you were to put in $5 because you all benefit, would you do it? And once he convinced them that it's a one-to-many concept, not a one-to-one concept,
Mhm.
when you start to enhance and make the building a performance piece of infrastructure, not just someplace where you go and try to perform, then it changes the dialogue a lot. So yeah, it's absolutely true. When you can make the building you're forced to work in a place that elevates your health and wellness on a passive basis, that's the key. You don't have to do anything different. I can change it overnight, and then next day you'll be in a better overall performance stance and a better biological opportunity. And then everything else you do, run, eat, supplements, everything else is going to be on an elevated base because you've served yourself the right light throughout the course of the day.
And then helping to get that sleep, which is the complete foundational component of how
Yeah,
everyone's day starts. It really is. Well, Kyle, thank you so much. I think this has been such an interesting conversation. Hopefully, people will find it illuminating.
sure.
See what I
Very
did
nice. There's lots of live puns out there, so
there? You've probably heard them all at this point.
I'll be
But
happy to show you the light.
Yeah, for sure. I will put all of your information in our show notes, but just tell people what is the easiest way for them to reach out to you and get a little bit more information if they're interested for whether their home or their office or workspace to
Sure. I
connect with
mean, our website is brainlit.com.
you. Hmm.
I'm Kyle.Harris at brainlit.com. I don't even know my social handles. I've got too many. I think it's KHarris1 on Instagram. But yeah, so just look us up and you'll find us. We've got a nice YouTube channel which shows a bunch of our under BrainLit, which shows a bunch of the video installations, the full tour of the Philadelphia Phillies facility, and a bunch of the other cool places we've done. And so that's the easiest way.
Well, thank you very much, Kyle. I appreciate you spending this afternoon with us, and we'll have everyone reach out to you.
Great. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.